Thank you, George. Just like I wrote it, man, you did. It's good to be here. What a beautiful school. I came here 4 years ago. I was a volunteer for John McCain. And we came to this college, and I know John and I just loved it. And so when the college wrote the would-be presidents in the Republican, and I'm sure you did in the Democratic Party as well, about coming to the college, I knew right off that I wanted to come. I'll talk for just a few minutes about an issue that's on my mind, and is the reason why I run for president. I have to begin, though, with, as a business person, I'm not a lawyer, and I haven't been in politics in 20 years. I'm a business guy. I grow jobs. That's what I do. And my favorite businessman died recently, but I always try to remember Steve Jobs. He was the best. He had 10 rules, and they're good for a college. And they're great for a businesswoman or a businessman. Let me quickly read them. Put passion first. 2, never limit your imagination. 3, pursue greatness over money. 4, demand excellence. You hear me, Provost?
We do.
5, challenge conventional wisdom. It's always wrong. No exceptions. 6, simplify. 7, ignore the naysayers. They never did a thing. 8, persist. 9, never pigeonhole. We are whole people. And 10, push beyond what you think is possible. I was a teacher at Harvard for years. I was a Kennedy Fellow. We never include this in my biography. It's embarrassing to be from Louisiana and say you taught at Harvard. You're legally not qualified to run for anything. But I taught Blue Ocean strategy as a Kennedy Fellow. Blue Ocean is what a college should be. A blue ocean is where there's no competition. All companies are in the red ocean, blood in the water. The best companies are blue ocean, no blood. These are companies like Southwest Airlines, where you can rent a plane, but you can't rent a seat. Wow. They reduced their costs by 22% with the one concept that you can rent a plane to Tampa, but you can't rent a seat on that plane. They lowered their operation costs 22%, and they gave that money to their customers. That's called Blue Ocean. Circus du Soleil is a circus. There are no animals. There are no clowns. There are no children. There's no sawdust. There are no 3 rings. They're the most profitable circus on earth. Blue Ocean. I'm a Blue Ocean fan. I do it different, deliberately. I always have. I wouldn't run for president to live in the White House. Who cares? What a terrible life that must be. No privacy. What a terrible life that must be. I went to the White House many times as a congressman. Reagan was the president. We used to laugh about the White House. He said, "You're going to run for president someday, aren't you, buddy?" I was 36. You're never quite as smart, George, as when you're 36. And I said, "Well, I'd like to, Mr. President." I said, "Do you have any advice?" He said, 2 things. Become governor of your state. It's minimum training ground to be president. And number 2, he says, "You're in the wrong damn party, buddy. You ought not be a Democrat. You ought to be a Republican." I think our country's problems are obvious. We owe more debt than any nation in the history of the world. $15 trillion. Now, excessive debt shrinks a nation as it does a company. I come from Louisiana. We were bought in the early 1800s by Thomas Jefferson. The Louisiana Purchase. 11 cents an acre. He bought it from a dictator in France, a guy named Napoleon. Napoleon's problem was that he had fought a series of wars, owed more money than France had. But he had a chance to pay off his debt, so he sold Louisiana. He doubled the size of America, and France disappeared from the New World. Excessive debt shrinks a nation. We're losing our space program, and you haven't seen anything yet. 2, we have a trade imbalance of more than $600 billion annually. And we've had it for 40 consecutive years. No nation ever has had that sort of trade imbalance for that long. Ever. And trade imbalances are a giving away of our wealth each year. And it is unsustainable. We've had a net reduction of our net worth that has never, ever been seen before. And there is no end in sight and no policy to change it. 3rd, annual spending profligacy has yielded the 3 largest annual deficits in American history the first 3 years of the Obama administration. Federal spending is out of control by any measure, and uncontrolled spending hurts the best of programs, not just the least of programs. We are Greece on steroids, and it's not good news. 4, we have 41 million more Americans in America now than we had 13 years ago. And we have 1.5 million fewer jobs. Wow. Where have the jobs gone? Overseas. It's not complicated. No one wants to say it. They're politicians. They tap dance. They sing. They're not jobs people. Where have the jobs gone? Mexico, Japan, China, Taiwan, Malaysia. Keep naming them. Brazil, Argentina. We've lost 3/4 of all of our best paying jobs. All of them. Manufacturing. A manufacturing job not only pays more per hour than any job other than executive, it creates 4 other jobs for every one of them. It takes support. It's the best jobs in America. They've been stolen or given away. Made in America's disappeared. Try it someday. Try to pick a year. Let's say the year started tomorrow, November 1st. And we're going to consume, we're going to live in, we're going to drive with, we're going to wear. Only made in America. You will call me sometime in the first week and say it can't be done. I love the President of the United States. He's trying to do a good job. I know he is. But God, he's got his 3rd stimulation program. It doesn't help America. Here's why. You give money out to consumers and let them consume. And that'll create jobs, you say. No, it doesn't. What are they buying? Made in China. We've lowered the unemployment rate in China from 40 million Chinese to 10 million in the last 3 years. It hadn't changed America. It's changing China. I don't think Made in America will return without an industrial policy designed to put America back to work. 5, We have 26 million Americans out of work, quit looking for work, or working part-time and unable to make ends meet. Now, there are other issues besides those 5. We have 12.5 million illegal aliens in our country and no attempt at a comprehensive immigration policy. It's like it's not important. We'll get to that later. We have no energy policy and we're fully addicted to foreign oil. Wow. Does that make America strong? I love to send that $750 billion to Saudi Arabia every year. It helps us so much. And I love these green guys in America. Oh, we're not going to drill in America. We'll drill in Saudi Arabia like those vapors don't go to the same globe that drilling here does. Are we stupid? Oh, there are other issues. The bureaucrats are running the country with 81,000 pages of new regulatory comment in the Federal Register last year alone. With small business spending more on compliance, $1.7 trillion, down taxes, $1.5 trillion. Nuclear proliferation speeds nearer the presence of Iran in the area of terror, and we have no policy. We're going to send Marines to Iran. That's our policy. There'll be blood in the streets. We are a nation in decline, with our government possessing none of the critical assets of success. And therefore, fast, focused, flexible, and friendly. The government is 0 for 4. Your university's on top of all 4. I guarantee. Check the U.S. Post Office and compare it to FedEx. And these daunting facts are not our biggest problem. These daunting facts are not why I run for president. And their solution is impossible without dealing with the real issue of our time. And no candidate running for president is talking about it. None. 0. In fact, they talk just the opposite. Our president's running for re-election barely halfway through his term, raising $1 billion. And that's the issue. Let me state it clearly. Institutional corruption, with our politicians being owned by the special interest. Now remember, I'm the only guy running for president who's been a congressman and a governor. I'm the only guy running for president who's been governor of a corrupt state. I fought it. I used to be 6'2", light brown hair, and smile. It ain't easy. Lobbyists write the tax code. You know that, don't you? You don't write it. You don't count. Lobbyists do. Ethanol corporations receive massive subsidies in a bloated budget, as does housing and agriculture and Exxon. They've all got lobbyists. PACs and super PACs give massive sums to politicians. Corporations have never been more profitable than they are right now. Yet when you graduate from this college, you'll be lucky to get 3 great job offers. When I graduated, we got 15 to 25. And the corporations have never done better. They gamed the tax code. They used the tax code to fire Americans and hire foreign workers, and they talk free trade. There it is, guys. Let me say it again. GE. I don't want to pick a name of company, but let's call GE. They made $14.2 billion last year. 5.4 of that billion was made in America. They paid no taxes on the 5.4 billion. Zero. Because under the code that they wrote, you can deduct foreign taxes paid against American taxes owed. Hello? That's called the foreign tax credit. Only nation in the world that has it. America does. You paid more taxes as a student with a part-time job than GE paid. GE fired 55,000 American workers last year. 55,000. And hired 49,000 Chinese. And they built a plant in China, which is fine. It's a free world. But that plant in China makes products not for the Chinese citizens, for America. We now live in a country where corporations find it more profitable to close their plant down and fire American women and men. Go overseas, hire them cheap with lower standards, and send the products back to America. Washington, D.C. is a scam. I call it the capital of corruption. There's a fundraiser every night. They don't read the bills. They don't have time. They're raising money, big checks. The top 1% of American corporations and the wealthy of our country own Washington, D.C. They own it. And I thought when Barack Obama, he took me in his campaign, hope, change, baloney. He did bank reform. Now I'm a banker. It'll make your eyes glaze over to talk about bank reform. But it did bring this country to its knees, didn't it? Illegal security, securitization of mortgages, raiding companies that were paid by the big banks to rate their own bonds. How about that for free? You've got a rotten system. You've got a banking system that's rotten. Now, my bank is almost $1 billion. It's hardly worth mentioning when you're talking about a bank that's worth $2 trillion. But my bank is profitable. My bank grows 15 to 20% a year, handling Texas and Louisiana. We didn't foreclose on a single mortgage. We restructured all of our debt. We made money every quarter, and we didn't get a dime of bailout money. Oh, the big boys embrace the moral hazard. Moral hazard is a banking term, which means there are no consequences for your actions, so hell, do what you want. Take all the risks that you want. That's called moral hazard. So we did bank reform under President Obama. I love this. Too big to fail is still the law. Moral hazard still runs the street. Glass-Steagall was not reimposed after working for 75 years, and Bill Clinton got rid of it. I remember being the only banker to go to Washington to argue against it. Bill laughed at me. He and I were governor of Arkansas, Louisiana at the same time, know him well. He said, buddy, you don't understand the money in politics. I guess I don't. He's been paid to do more speeches before big banks than any person in the history of the world. And he did away with Glass-Steagall in 1998 and 1990. So what did banking reform do? Too big to fail is still the law. Glass-Steagall is still dead. Capital ratios have not improved for the size of a bank. The system is corrupt. Look at health reform. I'm a diabetic. You see that on my belt buckle? That's called an insulin pump. I've been a diabetic for more than 40 years, almost 50 years. I believe that health care reform is needed. I'm not one of these right-wing kind of guys that don't think we don't need change. We do. You can't afford to be sick in many cases. So what did health reform do? Did it go after the cost of health insurance? No. Insurance companies don't have to compete. They're not under the Sherman Antitrust Act. Didn't know that, did you? There are 50 monopolies in this country. Every state has its own insurance monopolies. You can't buy health insurance across the state line. We have the highest insurance cost in the world, deliberately. They're the largest contributors to the politicians. Give out the money, they're not undersuring any trust. Healthcare didn't touch them. It didn't touch pharmaceutical costs. The head of the pharmaceutical lobby laughed when I talked to him. He laughed. He ran against me for governor. Remember Billy Tozan? He's head of the pharmaceutical lobbies. I beat him for governor. I was lucky. But we were friends. So I called him and said, now how were y'all protected in this health insurance, in this health reform? Y'all are the largest cost of medicine. He laughed. And he said, the president called me, buddy. And he said, if we don't lobby against health reform, he'll protect us. So there's no competition for pharmaceuticals. They're prevented by law for giving price discounts. They're protected by law from fair trade from Canada. My God, there was no tort reform. There was no incentive for lowering health care costs. Here's the way I run for president. I run against the corruption. I'm a proud Republican, but I'm a prouder American. I think it's time for our country to come together. I think it's time to rebuild America from the center. I think it's time to stand up for working people who are getting their jobs stolen from them. I think it's time to tell the politicians from the office of the president that we're going to reform campaigns, and here's how we're going to do it. I've set some voluntary restraints on this campaign, and it's hurt my well-being. I'm not well known, but I'll get there. Someday, somewhere, sometime in this campaign, they'll let me in a debate, and I'll ask Mitt Romney, how many $1 million checks have you taken me? And how come we don't know about it? I'll ask John Huntsman about his super PAC, funded by $1 billion from his father, and you don't know about it. I'll ask Rick Perry how he has 7 super PACs and crony capitalism is alive and well. And I'll ask all these candidates, what are you going to do for reform? Will you take a broom and sweep Washington? Will you stand up to China for fair trade? Are you owned by the political givers in the corporations of America? They don't want to hear that question. And maybe it's why I haven't been in a single debate. Although it's coming harder to keep me out. I have risen in popularity up to 2% in the polls. It's funny, but when you start at 0, you're proud of 2. I've had contributions from all over America. We've raised more than $250,000. Average contribution, $64. I would do the following 6 things. I would have full disclosure as a requirement. The Supreme Court allows it. Congress could do it now if a president would lead. I will demand full disclosure. That's what I do. No PACs, no super PAC, $100 limit. I would have a 48-hour reporting period. Oh, shocking. The law now is 120 days. The election is over before you know who the politician got his money from. Full disclosure, 48-hour reporting. I would not allow lobbyists to bring a check or anybody in their firm to participate in a fundraiser. I would disallow super PACs. I would allow PACs to give no more than individuals. And finally, I would have criminal penalties for violation. Now, I need you to stand with me. It's not about me. I can't do it by myself. When I became governor of Louisiana, our unemployment rate was 12% and higher. We cut it in half. We did teacher pay. We had a bond rating lowest in America. We were below Guam. I'm not putting Guam down, but We were below 49 states in Guam. We raised our bond rating 5 times. We prosecuted corruption. We had the strongest Campaign Disclosure Act in America. We appointed an inspector general for the first time, and he sent corrupt politicians to jail. It didn't make me popular, but it cleaned Louisiana up. And today it has one of the lowest unemployment rates in America. It's had a series of fine governors. It starts with corruption. And the corruption has moved from Baton Rouge to Washington, D.C. It's expensive to run for president. And American politics has become a money game. South Carolina is an example. Since I'm here, it costs you $35,000 to qualify to be on the Republican ballot for president. It's a disgrace. $35,000. Now, New Hampshire's smaller and expensive. It costs you $1,000. I can give you state after state where it costs you $500 or $1,000, but not in South Carolina. We might have to run in this state as an independent to get on the ballot. The facts of money in politics I can't change, but I can maintain full disclosure and reasonable limits. I run for president. I need your help. You say, well, is it possible to win? 35 days ago, Herman Cain had 3% of the vote. 3% of the vote. Republicans can't make up their mind who they want. I've lived through Donald Trump this year. He was going to be the man. I've lived through Mitt Romney. He was going to be the man. I lived through Michelle Bachmann. Remember her? She was going to be the woman. Then it was Rick Perry. Remember when he was coming? It was over. Now it's Herman Cain. He won't last. Republicans are telling you something. College of Charleston, they're telling me we can't make up our mind. We haven't found the right person yet. I want you to get on my website. It's buddyroemer.com. And I want you to help us. You can't do much, but you can make the difference. You can be a campaign manager. You're a student. You can give $10 a month and ask 10 of your friends to join us. We're going to change this country. And here's my dream. I dream that when you graduate from college, that there's a dozen job offers. And they're good ones. When you have children, we'll live in a nation that takes care of its own. And made in America is not an idle boost. We will have the biggest boom in the history of this country in the 4 years after I'm elected. You know why? Made in America will be our priority, and we'll start making things again. Thanks for having me.
Staying cognizant of time, Governor Roemer does have to get in the airplane in just an hour or so.
Let's take some questions.
Yes, I would like to open up for a few questions, though, if you have some.
Easy questions are welcome. No. Anybody on anything? I know I left out a million things that I like talking about, but I had to talk about the money. Yes?
Hi, Governor. Thanks for coming today.
A good Louisiana man.
Happy to play with.
Thanks, Brian.
A question for you. This series is sponsored by the Department of Communication. It's about presidential communication. How would a Roemer administration communicate differently with the press and with the public?
Well, I'm a listener just by my nature. So I will spend a lot of time outside of Washington listening. I just learned so much that way. Number two, we live in the 21st century now. And I have been dragging sometimes to, my wife with her Facebook obsession. My friends with our website, we just redid our website finally. We wanted to redo it 2 months ago. We just didn't have the money. Last month was our biggest fundraising month. I think we raised $93,000. Obama's average fundraising ticket is $35,000. So we raised 3 tickets to an Obama fundraiser last month. But I will ask people to work on our communication skills that have never been to Washington. And they don't have to come to do it. We will decentralize our communications technique. We will allow a different issue in Houston than in Charleston because there are different issues. The job of a president is to listen, devise an answer, and communicate it. So you're a part of a 3-step process that's very important. We will be a young administration. When in doubt, I try to pick young. It's always worked for me. My bank president now, $1 billion bank, is 36. This is his first time to be a bank president. But I've trained him for 5 years. When I started the bank, I asked him to join me. He's a graduate of Harvard undergraduate and the London School of Economics. He ranked first in his class in the best banking school in America. He was a captain in the military in Afghanistan and Iraq. He's 36. I will try to pick people who don't have a resume but have a spirit of youthfulness. And the voice that you'll hear from Washington will be so clean and so loud. Finally, I will communicate with the Congress. Now, I know no one else talks about that. I'm a poker player, and we will play poker literally when I'm in Washington. They love it. I used to do more business with Reagan and his team. That's a form of communication. You get to know somebody. You get to trust somebody. I'll reach across party lines. Like I said, I'm a Republican, but I'm a lot more than that. I'm a nation builder. And it's not going to be Afghanistan we're going to rebuild. It's going to be America. And communication's important. But I need to communicate my dreams with the Congress and let them take credit for it. We can do campaign reform. I think Congress wants to do campaign reform. I'll show them how. But that's my approach. Personal involvement, listening first, decentralization, giving other people credit, and not limiting myself to my party, but my country. Yes, sir.
Governor, former Senator Fritz Holland says that it would take a constitutional amendment to bring about the campaign finance reform
that we need.
Would you support such amendment?
Yes.
Do you think you could get it through the country?
I don't know yet. Let me not overpromise success, but let me talk about intention. I think it's going to take both short-term mentorship. How did the president get elected? I believe a candidate who says, well, I agree with you, buddy, and I'm going to do that when I get in office, but right now, I've got to take all the money I can take. That's nonsense. The only way to stand up to corruption is to stand up to it. So let's see how they run. Number 2, I think we need some non-constitutional, I didn't say unconstitutional, but non-constitutional quick action. 48-hour reporting period will be acceptable to the Supreme Court. They've already said as much. So we can speed up the disclosure. Full disclosure, they said in their 5-4 Citizens United thing that disclosure was a topic on the table. So I think we can insist on that. So we'll put together some short-term, during my 4-year term, that will be the new laws. In that time, though, we will work on a constitutional provision for the American people to consider, and it will come to South Carolina. Now, I see that as including more than campaign finances. I see it include term limits, as an issue of reform. If you want real reform, let these men and women get a real job periodically. It'll help them. I've learned more the last 20 years I haven't been in office than the 12 years I was. Isn't that interesting? It's a good mixture to have. So we'll do term limits, and we'll also include reapportionment on there. Done not by the party in power, but done by a third party out of power that has to be approved by the people of the state. We're going to put the people and nonpartisan leadership in terms of reapportionment. Do you know how many seats in the House of Representatives of the United States Congress are really up for grab every year, every 2 years? 13%. The other 87% either get reelected automatically or the person retires from office and there's a new election. So constitutional reform is ultimately going to be needed because, speaking bluntly, I won't be there all the time. I'm 68. One good solid term, that's all you can count on. There might be another one, but we'll see how it goes. So I don't run to be a perpetual president. But I do run to take a broom to Washington and start the initiatives for permanent reform. And I think Fritz is right. It will take ultimately a constitutional amendment. Yes, sir.
Tax reform.
Yes, I'm a big reformist. I've already described how the current code is written. It's written by Band-Aid and patchwork. It's done deliberately. When I started a group in Congress called the Boll Weevils. I don't know if you remember the Boll. These were conservative Democrats, and I come from a cotton farm in Louisiana, so I named it the Boll Weevils. There were 43 of us. We had some guys from South Carolina, as a matter of fact, on our Boll Weevil team. And we worked with the president on tax reform, President Reagan. The president called one day and he said, "Buddy, I've got a high technology tax credit that I'd like to submit to the Congress. Can you guys be for that?" And I said, "It sounds good, Mr. President. Send it over and let's take a look at it." Well, we liked it. We endorsed it. Went to see the Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, and Tip said, "Well, buddy, you're giving money away. This is money that companies otherwise would pay. How do we know we're going to get any benefit?" So we suggested that we do it for 2 years and see what the results were. And if we liked what we saw in 2 years, we could make the investment tax credit permanent. That was in 1981. We passed it. Reagan signed it. He was very pleased and proud of it. The first 2 years of the tax credit was an enormous success. Unemployment went down, jobs went up, companies started expanding in new technology. It was a big success. So I went to the Speaker at the end of 2 years. I had been reelected, so did the Speaker. I said, "Mr. Speaker, let's make this permanent." He said, "Buddy, you don't understand how this game is played. Let's keep it every 2 years so that we'll go back to the business community every 2 years and say, 'Look, I'm running for reelection. I help you get the investment tax.'" That's the way the tax code is written. It needs to be permanent. It needs to be simple. It needs to be clear. It needs to be fair. I'm a flat tax guy. I've been that way since I announced in February. I like the Steve Forbes idea of a flat tax in 1998, 2001. It would be a 17% rate. The first $50,000 would be tax-free of income. You take care of your family with that. That's fair. You'd pay 17% no matter how much you made above that, but there'd be no exceptions, no deductions. GE would have to pay it too. If you make $100,000, the first $50,000 is tax exempt. The next $50,000 is 17%. That means you've paid 8.5% on $100,000. There's no sales tax, no value-added tax. It's a straight income tax. People that are making money pay a part to run the government. I believe in tax reform. I don't believe in tax modification. We need to throw the current system out and put a new system in. No double tax. If you get a dividend from a company, the company's already paid the 17% tax. You don't tax it again. No death tax. No marriage penalty. No alternative minimum tax. It's so simple. No new taxes, no value-added tax, no sales tax. I mean, Herman Cain is so off mark with his 999. It will make your tax rate the highest it's ever been and add a national sales tax for the first time. I don't think he's thought it through. I would do it simple. Flat tax, $50,000 deduction, no exemptions or deduction, everybody pays. By the way, my goal is 18% budget of GDP. And the tax at this 17% will yield that in America. We'll be in balance. It can happen in 3 years. In balance. Somebody
I
else.
apologize if we
Is it
can get to your
time?
question, but you are going to miss your
man,
plane.
I like
So.
this.
But I would like to present to you a College of Charleston sweatshirt.
Oh, awesome.
Please help me in thanking Governor Roemer for attending our first fully pulpit event of the.
Well, thank you. I'll be back again. If somebody doesn't show up, ask me back.
Thank you.